come in for your glory. We will lift you up. We will come in for your glory. We will lift you up. We will come in for your glory.
We're going to continue our story. We made it. Here's the good news. We made it out of chapter 17. Somebody put their hands together for that. Before I say anything else, I have to stop and say thank you so much to Minister Allen, who did last Saturday's service for us, and to Minister Bess, who did both of them did a wonderful job. Last Sunday was as beautiful a sermon as I've ever heard in my life. And thank you guys both for sharing and for being so transparent both days. So much transparency. And that's what a ministry is. It's in the transparency. And so thank you, Minister Allen. Beautiful word on Saturday. And Minister Bess, beautiful word on Sunday. I've been pulling off Band-Aids all week long. I think many of us have been pulling out. You challenged us. And because of it, healing is happening in this house. Because of that sermon last week, healing is happening in the house. Infection is leaving. Healing is entering because of that sermon, because of both of those sermons last week. So I want to pick up in chapter 18. Now let me just, we know the scene. There's not a lot of background that needs to happen on chapter 17. You guys ought to be able to speak to chapter 17 backwards and forwards, forward and backwards. You ought to understand giants, all the things that we need to do. We have spent almost a mini series in this big series of being overwhelmed on giants. There is a great understanding of giants. I'm sure many of you are seeing your giants. I'm believing that heads are being cut off of giants, that people are being transformed. And it is an amazing story. David cuts this head off of this giant. They win the battle. They begin to go about and killing all the other Philistines. They would have been slaughtering other giants because some of the Philistines were giants as well. So they're conquering giants. I mean, it is an amazing story. One of the biggest, most read stories in the world, right? This whole David and Goliath story. And then we get into, chapter 18. And things in the first few verses of chapter 18 are still great. David's in the process of getting to know Saul better. He's been with Saul, but Saul doesn't really know who his family is. He's an employee. Think about Saul as the CEO. The CEO, and he has a lot of people working for him and a lot of people doing stuff for him. But does he know you? Does he know your mama? Does he know your dad? Because sometimes when people look at this verse, they think that there's some error there. But you got to understand that at the end of chapter 17, Saul is trying to figure out, who is this David guy? I know he worked here. I know he's playing the harp. I know he's doing some stuff. Who is his dad? He's trying to figure this stuff out. Good things are happening. The beginning of chapter 18, Jonathan and David meet each other for the first time. God connects their heart. God connects their spirit. Amazing things are happening in the nation of Israel. Got to get that. Amazing things are happening. And then all of a sudden we get to verse 5. And I want you to see this. Whatever Saul asked David to do, David did it. He did it successfully. Some versions said he was very wise. He did the job exactly the way that he's supposed to do it. He did it successfully. So Saul made him a commander over the men of war, an appointment that was welcomed by the people and Saul's officers alike. Not only is David doing the job good, but the people like the way he does the job. The people love him. The people, they're celebrating the fact that God is promoting him, that he's moving up in the army. Go a little bit further. It says, when the victorious Israelite army was returning home after David had killed the Philistine, women from all the towns of Israel came to meet King Saul. Got to see this, man. This is epic. This is what's up. We went into war, it's kind of like the Braves went home to Atlanta. They won the World Series. Now the whole city of Atlanta is out. People are chanting and having a good time. I'm believing that Cam may even do that here, right? We might get a chance to get a parade here, right? Who knows? I think it'll go to Pittsburgh, but we'll see. He says, they sang, and look what they did. They danced for joy with tambourine. Why don't we have tambourines in this sanctuary? I'm just curious. Y'all don't miss tambourines? I miss the lady with the tambourine. Now listen, if we're going to have tambourine uplift, it's one. I want one on every row, and I don't want a whole lot of people running around here with tambourines. All right. So with tambourines and with cymbals, you got to see this. This is a party. The DJ is there. This is a party. Drums and cymbals and tambourines, and everybody is dancing, and everybody is singing. This is a party. Yeah. I want you guys to see this. This was their song, and this is what they were singing. They had a hook. And the hook was, Saul has killed his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. This is an amazing thing. We got people who are out there fighting for us. The king has literally killed thousands. And this person that he put in position has killed tens of thousands. This is a good thing, because guess what? If you work for me and I sell 1,000 shirts and you sell 10,000 shirts, I'm responsible for selling 11,000 shirts. This is a good thing. But let me tell you, this jealousy thing starts to creep in. I want you guys to see it early. Look what happens. These are the people, the women, they're shouting, all the ladies in the house say, and then this is what they're saying. Saul has killed his thousands, and am I making it plain? And David has killed his 10,000s. But guess what? This didn't make Saul happy. This made Saul very angry. I'm going to say that real slow so everybody can see that. The fact that other people were celebrating that he killed 1,000, and that the person that he hired and put in position killed 10,000, didn't make him happy. What is this? Is what he asked himself. They credit David with 10,000 and me with only 1,000. Next, they'll be making him their king. Let's go a little bit further. So from that time on, Saul kept the green eye, a jealous eye on David. The very next day, a tormenting spirit from Elohim. Got to get this now. I know this is hard for some people to see. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later. But when you get into jealousy, God kind of has to remove himself away from that. And he sends in this tormenting spirit. And hopefully this tormenting spirit will turn you back to God is the hope, is what he's trying to do. But look what it does. I want you guys to see this. Jealousy caused Saul to be. Isn't that amazing when the series worked like that? Okay. And he began to what? To rave in his house like a what? A madman. Jealousy, man. Jealousy overwhelms us. We're going to be talking about being overwhelmed by jealousy. Let us pray. Father God, we come to you now in the name of your son, Yeshua the Christ, God. We come praying and believing in your promise. And for this series, the promise that we're focusing on, that in the midst of all the trouble that we have, that you can get us through it. All we have to do is be of good cheer. That you can bring peace into every situation that we have. So God, it is a very simple prayer. Jealousy is one of those things. It's easy for us to see in somebody else. Very difficult. It's like bad breath, guys. It's easy for us to see it in somebody else. Very difficult for us to see it in ourselves. So help us, God, to identify the jealousy that we have. Give us the ability to turn to peace. It's a simple prayer, Lord. We pray this in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. To God be the glory. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Amen. Amen. So, as many of you guys know or are aware of, I've been spending some time away the last couple of weeks. My son, he pledged a fraternity that I pledged, but very proud of him. He pledged Omega. I'm very proud of him and his probate show. I went down there. Matter of fact, my line brother, he texted me Tuesday morning. He said, "You need to go home. You need to go home. You've been there too long." I said, "Okay, I'm going home after the probate show." I hear you, Speedy. I hear you. But I went up Friday and I stayed through the weekend and just really had a chance to bond with Angelo. Outstanding job, Angelo, on this entire thing. But while I was there, I picked up on this terminology that people were using. All right, so there's this thing they use this word called kickback, right? I think that's right, kickback, kick up, or whatever. And what that is called for is a party at somebody's house, right? So as I began to think about this whole kickback thing, and I began to reflect, on the glory days when I was on the yard, I'm talking about, I get to thinking back on this thing. And what God did was he reminded me of what we call a house party. So they call it a kickback. I can't get past it. Can I just stay here for just a second? They call it a kickback, and you got to have a method to understanding why it's called a kickback. And we called it a house party. Why? Because we was at somebody's house. And so we called it a house party. And as I began to think about it, because I went by there, just dropped Angelo off, and then I kept going, of course. But I noticed that it was really different. It should have a different name, because the house parties that I remembered are much different than it's really just a kickback. People just kind of sitting around and not really, but we had house parties. Some of y'all know what I'm talking. Now, let me say this real quick. I know there's a few here who have not going to have any idea what I'm talking about. You didn't do house parties. You've always been perfect, and you didn't make mistakes. And to God be the glory. God bless you. But I was very imperfect, and I went to house parties, and I had house parties, and I'm reflecting back on a house party right now. And guess what? I'm on stage talking about a house party. And house parties, listen, they are amazing. But every house party, talk to this young guy right here. Every house party is not created equally. Some house parties, you actually had a DJ to come and set up. And so he'll have two of these turntable things. Most people don't even know what this is now. This is millennials. This is a turntable. I got to take a second and just explain a little bit of this. This is an vinyl album. And back in my day, whenever we had a show enough house party, you had a little DJ come in, and he had a little table, a little card table or something, not nothing too fancy, and he'll set up a couple of these turntables, because it's very difficult. There's no Pandora. Otherwise, you have tapes in there. You're trying to cut the tapes off, or you're trying to record a song and cut it off. You got It's just you need a DJ for a real house party. And so we get somebody come over and little or nothing and set up this in the back somewhere. And listen, if the house party was good, there'll be a couple of things that would indicate that it was good. It'll be packed. I'm talking about. Every good house party I went to, it was wall to wall. People were everywhere, up the steps, everywhere inside of the house. If the house party is good, got to hear this now, a house is not set up to handle this many people at one time doing the same thing. So if you are having a good house party, the house will shake. You'll feel it moving a little bit as people begin. Y'all, somebody been to a house party. Somebody know that. I'm not the only person at Uplift that went to it. Somebody online, put in the chat, I've been to a house party. Come on. So it'll get so hype in there that it's just like the people will be chanting, and it'll get so hype in there that you'll feel it, because it is not designed. These people's apartment is not designed for you to be having that many people in there moving the same way at the same time, right? And then, not only that, but I want you guys to see this. If it's a real good house party, the next level house party, the windows will sweat. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about, do it. Some of y'all, I would pull up to the house. I could tell you what was going on the inside of the house by what the windows look like outside. Not by the noise is deceptive. The radio might be loud. But if the windows are sweating, I know that, come on, Mr. Wright, you know about Mr. Wright? You got to get out of it. Okay, so if the windows are sweating, then we know that the house party is good. And when the house party gets like that, it's all about the DJ. Once he gets it going like that, once the windows start sweating, it's all about the DJ. And what happens at some of these house parties? Because there's not a lot of room, because folk are in there drunk, because folk are in there, sometimes they're not aware of how close they are to the DJ table, not booth, to the DJ table, because they're trying to impress somebody, trying to take somebody else's girl, trying to impress somebody. They get to dancing all hard and sweaty up in there, and they forget where they are in relationship to the table. And this happens. I want you guys to remember this. For those who've been to a real house party, you get that clown, and he started jumping around and acting a fool, and he's not aware. He's drunk. He's not in his right mind. And he gets to this place, and the next thing you know, you hear this. And depending on the damage that he did, it's going to depend on how quickly. All of a sudden, everybody's having a good time, celebrating. The windows are sweating. The place is shaking. And then all of a sudden, it gets quiet. And depending on how bad the issue that this one person, it's always just one person, and depends on how bad the issue, because if he just bumped it, DJ might continue to scratch it out and keep playing. But if he knocked it over, he could have broke the actual mic in some way or another. He could have broke the needle on this thing. You know the needle break on these things, right? If he broke the needle, do you realize she just crippled the entire party? Sometimes I've seen it, I'm not kidding, where somebody knocked the entire table over. And now we got to sit down and plug this up and put this back together. And the entire time that's happening, now this place that was jumping up and down and the windows were sweating and all this stuff that was going on, the entire time that they're trying to put all this stuff back together, some ladies leaving and some guys leaving and people leaving the dance floor. And listen, and you might not ever get back to that place again. Not that night. It's possible that night may not ever get back to the height where it was before that numbskull. Trying to show out. Trying to take somebody's girl. Too drunk, out of their mind, bumped into the table, knocked the table down, and did whatever it is to ruin this beautiful party. And that's what jealousy does. That's what jealousy does to a family. You remember what it was like before that jealousy incident happened inside the family, and then people had to take sides, and all this stuff started going on, and now you got these two people in the center of this issue, and because of one of them is jealous of the other person, all this turmoil. Listen, the music has stopped. The issues have started. This is what happens at a job. When everything is going right, it is a wonderful thing to be at work, and then all of a sudden, jealousy shows up. And what happens is, when jealousy shows up, somebody hits this turntable, calls it the skip, and causes the good thing, the good fun, the thing that's happening inside of everybody's life to be taken away. This is what happens in a marriage. When one of the partners start to grow in just a little bit too much, start being called into ministry. I feel so sorry for ladies who are called into ministry. But because you have a jealous spouse, because you have been touched and you have been given some favor that your spouse has not been given, you have to take a back seat in ministry. Because you know that if you really step into your anointing, if you really step into that place where God has called you to be, that your husband going to turn the whole table over. There's some guys that are like that. God is calling you to do something. And the reason why you won't do it is because you know that your wife is going to be jealous, and you know that, hey, I want to just keep the music playing. I just want to keep things going smooth. I want to just keep the window sweating. Let's be careful with that. I want to keep everything the way that it's going, and the best way for me to do it is to hide who I am. Because this person that I'm with is insecure. And listen, it's going to lead to jealousy. And you're trying your best not to aggravate somebody, not to bring out the jealousy in that person, because you know that if you really shine, that if you really did that thing that God has called you to do, if you really live the way that God has called you to live, that it would cause for that turntable to get flipped over, for that issue to come out. And this is a terrible way to live. And here's the challenge with it. Jealousy is like bad breath. It's easy for you to detect it in somebody else, but it is very difficult. Do you realize that the people who have bad breath in your life, they do not know they have bad breath? And a lot of times it is very difficult for us to see, hey, that's me. I smell something. It's you. I smell, do you smell garlic? Yeah, it's you. It's coming out your skin, your ears, it's coming out your mouth, it's coming out of everything. But it is jealousy. Listen, jealousy is difficult for us to see, but jealousy is dangerous, and jealousy overwhelms us. And what I want to do is, I want to go to James chapter 3. And what he does is, James begins to explain this whole thing about jealousy and how it gets to this place of overwhelming us. And this is what James says. He says, for jealousy, talking about this word jealousy, and I looked this word jealousy up inside of Hebrew. This is Hebrew, not Greek, in Hebrew. And this is what it says. Jealousy is a feeling of discontentment. I'm not happy with what I am. I'm not happy with what I got. I'm not happy with who I am. I'm not happy with where I am. It is a feeling of discontentment caused by a person ignoring God's goodness towards them. They're not thankful. Yeah. They can't see what God is doing inside of their life. And so what they do is they look at what God is doing inside of somebody else's life and they get jealous. And this happens, listen, Paul talks about this. This is one of those things it's in everybody. Now, you have some people that are jealous-hearted people, but all of us, everybody, this is what Paul says now. If you believe what he says that inside of your flesh, of every single person that's in here, is this jealousy. It's jealousy. There's an opportunity, something will happen, and you'll look at that and you'll say, ooh, I wish I want, or you'll look at it and you'll say, they're trying to get what I have. You'll look at a situation, you'll go through a situation, you'll look at a person and you'll become jealous. And what jealousy is, it is the discontentment caused by a person ignoring what God has really been doing for them or resenting God's goodness toward another person. And so what jealousy is, it is me not seeing what God has done to me, or me saying that God, you shouldn't have done that for this other person. And it is a dangerous thing. And it's overwhelming. Let's go a little bit further, because James talks about how jealousy becomes overwhelming. And look what he says. He says, for wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you'll find, look what he says, disorder and evil of every kind. I want you guys to see this. The children of Israel killed a giant named Goliath. They cut his head off. They're celebrating. Everything is wonderful. And then all of a sudden, a new giant steps up. And the new giant is a spiritual giant. And so although they have conquered this giant in the flesh, they've literally cut his head off. David is like walking around with this head as a trophy. Everywhere he goes, he's in front of Saul with this trophy. Everybody's celebrating. Everybody's having a party. Matter of fact, the party is off the chain. People have tambourines and cymbals. The women are saying, oh yeah. Everybody's yelling. They're celebrating. I mean, this is a party. And then jealousy shows up. And Saul stumbles into the turntable. And he messes everything up. This was the time when the Philistines, they should have been routed out. This is the time when the children of Israel, they are paying today because of the mistakes that were made right here. Because of jealousy, there is land that they've not conquered. Because of jealousy, there's pain that they've gone through. It happened then, and it's happening now because of jealousy. And I want you guys to see this. Jealousy It's the worst kind of evil possible. In fact, go back a slide, Randy. Let me show them something real quick. You got to see this. This thing, this jealousy thing, this is why God sent that tormenting spirit. Because it's not from God. He says, listen, this jealousy thing is not from God. This jealousy thing is earthly at best. It's just earthly, right? You just feel a little certain way about another person because they have something that you don't have, and hopefully that's the extent of it. But you need to understand that jealousy can become unspiritual. That you can get to this place where you begin to literally pray against somebody. You literally can't deal with this person. You literally, when they come into the room, you just feel it welling up on the inside of you. You get to this place where you go on Facebook, and instead of celebrating, you begin to look at people and you begin to get angry with people. You begin to get resentful with people. You begin to get to this place of insecurity. You get to this place where you actually start to acting out of this madness is what the Bible talks about. You get to this place where you actually start trying to do things to hurt. This is jealousy. And he says that when it gets to that level, it becomes literally demonic. Like your jealousy, this little thing, this little feeling that you have. If it's not dealt with, if you don't do something with it quickly, if you let it fester, and some of you guys know this because some of you guys have had somebody be jealous towards you, and you know that you didn't do anything, but it just festered, and over time, they just blew things out of proportion. But here's the thing. Some of you have been jealous. Yeah, some of you have been very jealous. Some of you have walked in and hit this thing on purpose. Some of you have turned the DJ booth over. Some of you have been jealous. Some of you have brought all this foolishness because this is what he says. Go back to the next verse. He says that whenever you find jealousy, you find disorder and evil of what? All kinds. And so listen, jealousy is the giant that brings every other giant with him. When jealousy shows up, it does not show up alone. You got to understand this. This is why understanding jealousy is so important, because every time is what he says. Whenever, every time. Look this word up, whenever. It means whenever. He says, whenever there is jealousy, this is what you're going to find. You're going to find disorder. Whenever there's jealousy in a marriage, this is what you'll find. Disorder and every evil practice possible. Whenever there's jealousy at work, you know what you're going to find at that job? Disorder and all kind of evil stuff going on. People doing stuff like, is this work still? I mean, you're doing that to this? You're trying to get back that? Is that important to you? When this shows up in a family, I'm talking about between siblings. What shows up at the family reunion with those siblings is jealousy. And guess what? Also all kind of disorder, all kind of dysfunction, and every kind of issue that you can think about. And listen, for many of us, we can pinpoint the deterioration of our family from the day that this jealousy thing showed up, knocked the needle off the turntable, and we still haven't been able to get it back to going at all. And I want you guys to see this. I hope I'm making this plain. Because you have to understand the children of Israel are going through the exact same issue with jealousy. Now let's go back and imagine. They're having a party. They're having a good time. People are playing cymbals. People are singing. People have come from all the edges of the country, all throughout the nation, and they've come to this place. And the ladies they're doing that. Hey, ladies, they're doing that thing, and they're talking about how great the warriors are. Yeah. Saul, you are the king. We're victorious. You get all the credit. And you even went out and killed 1,000 people. Not only are you the boss, but you actually go out and sell the product also. That is an amazing accomplishment. Many of us wish that our boss would go do something other than bother us. I got some amens in that section, isn't it? But Saul hears this. He sees this party going on. He hears this chant going on. And it gives credit to David, a little bit more credit than he gets. And all of a sudden, this jealousy thing gets in. And I can prove what James says about all kind of disorder pops up. Because the first thing we see is that jealousy, it leads to anger. That's the first thing that we see. Look right here in verse 7 and 8. It says this was their song. Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s, and for no reason whatsoever. Turntable, knocked the needle knocked out the turntable. Party's got to stop. I'm angry. And I want you guys to see this. Whenever you see somebody doing something, and they haven't done anything to you, but it bothers you. You know, we got some people like that in our life, right? I know that it's not an easy thing for us to want to admit, but when we see them, I don't know what it is about them. I mean, hey, and this is where we get spiritual with it, and my spirit don't lie to me. Something wrong with this situation, something wrong with this. My discernment tells me, we start using them Bible words, and here it is. You jealous. You jealous. That's the problem. Nothing's wrong with them. Something's wrong with you. It's not their breath. It's your. I'm just playing. But the first thing that we see, jealousy leads to anger. But he says all kind of bad things, all kind of disorder come out. So as we continue to read, we see that jealousy not only leads to anger, but it leads to resentment. Look in verse 8. He says, what's this? He said, they credit David with 10,000 and me with only 1,000. I resent this. Why didn't they just credit me with 11,000? Says David worked for me. Says I'm the king. Why would they honor him? Why didn't they know that when they said this thing, when they did this thing, it would upset me? Why are they trying to take away from my credit? Why is he being given credit that I believe I should have? I resent what they said. I resent what he did. See, this jealousy thing, it doesn't just bring anger in. You got to see this. It begins to bring in resentment. And we get to that place when we begin to resent this person. Oh, they don't deserve it. Oh, yeah, they got the promotion, but they weren't the most qualified. And you know what's going to happen to them? They just going to fail. They don't know what they're doing. They don't even know the job. They just promoted them because they part of the good. Resentment. Because listen, the person that promoted them is not the person that you're angry with. The person that promoted them, this is why it is such a deadly thing. This is why God takes his hand off of it. This is why God torments it, because what you're saying is the boss that made that decision, the boss that gave that bonus, the boss that gave that promotion, the God that gave them the car, the God that gave them the family, the God that gave them the job, the God that gave them the house. I don't like what that God did. And listen, it goes to this place where it's earthly, where it becomes, listen to this, unspiritual. We ought to be celebrating anybody who gets a promotion. We ought to be celebrating everybody who gets a promotion. It doesn't matter. So somebody came in and spent less time than you. Well, we should celebrate. They're changing the policy. They're doing something different. So what? Why are we operating in this unspiritual, potentially demonic place? Not only does jealousy lead to resentment, but you see now jealousy stepped on the scene. Anger stepped in with jealousy. And resentment stepped in with jealousy. Now look what else stepped in. Insecurity. He says next, that they'll be taking my job. I resent this guy. I resent the fact that y'all giving him credit. I'm angry. All of a sudden, I'm angry. I knew I was right about the way I felt. I'm angry, and I resent this thing that's going on. I resent the way y'all giving him credit. I resent the way mama always favored you. I resent the way brother always favored you. I resent the way all our friends were together, but everybody was always, no matter what happened to you, I resent the fact that I'm going through stuff. I'm hurting and you ain't called me and nobody ain't called me. But when you went through what you was going through, I resent the fact that everybody came to your rescue instead of me applauding the fact that when I was hurting and nobody came to my rescue, that was lonely and that was hard. And there's somebody now who's going through something and we figured it out. Now we're going to celebrate the fact that we're all better now. No. When I was down, nobody said, you didn't say nothing to me. Nobody said, I resent it. And not only do I resent it, but I get to this place because God has blessed you, that I get to this place of insecurity where I believe that you're going to take what I have or you're going to leave me behind or you're going to get to this place that I can't get to. Now, all kind of disorder, not only does jealousy lead to insecurity, but I need you guys to see this. Jealousy also leads to madness. It gets to this place. Look what he says. The very next day, a tormenting spirit from Elohim came. You got to see this because I know this makes us uncomfortable. God sent a tormenting spirit to Saul. This is what I want you to understand. Jealousy takes you into a whole nother place with God. When you're jealous, you are saying, God, you didn't do your job right. When you're jealous, you're saying, you didn't bless me enough and you blessed them too much. When you're jealous, you are questioning the man in charge. Trust me, if the man in charge of your company, if the man in charge of your team could hear you at the water cooler talking about the person that he hired, he punish you too. And what God does is he sends this. This is in the word. I can't take it out. I'm not going to take it out. He sends this tormenting spirit. And here's my rhema from this. The tormenting spirit is meant to turn us to say, hey, this is wrong. Your anger, this is wrong. Your resentment, this is wrong. You need to get back close to God. You need to come back close to me. Your insecurity, this is wrong. But what ends up happening is he gets overwhelmed by jealousy. I want you guys to see this. And Saul, he begins to rave in his house like a madman. Now listen to me. We're progressing into jealousy. It starts out generally as a simple anger. Most of us can deal with that simple anger. If you root it out at that point, it's kind of gone, right? Oh, man, I ain't like the way that made me feel. I was a little jealous there. I'm letting that go. We're moving on. When it moves to resentment, it gets a little bit stronger. When it gets to insecurity, when it gets to the place where you begin to define yourself by your jealousy, when it gets to this place where you're dealing with anger, you're dealing with resentment, you're dealing with insecurity, it will drive you mad. And you know, I don't have to preach this. You know people, you know jealous people. You listen to them. And what they say, it does not make sense. When they start talking about this person and you say, well, why don't you like this person? And when they start trying to explain it, it's madman talking. And they begin to talk about stuff and they begin to say stuff and they begin to cuss and they get all angry and and it looks like they're actually going mad. This word literally means that they're losing their mind, that they're out of control of themselves. You know, just like that guy that's dancing at the party and knocked the turntable off. This is what happens to us when we don't address our jealousy. When we let our jealousy turn to anger and turn to resentment and turn to insecurity. We get to this place where we're back. And listen to me. You know people like this. This is the hard part about it. They cannot see that they're like this. They actually think that everything that they're saying about the person that they're jealous of is actually a factual, a good point. Nobody else can see you like I can see you. If everybody else can see you, some of y'all have been jealous before, and some of y'all you've been hurt by people who are jealous. If everybody could see you like I see you, if everybody just knew the real person that you were, mad, incoherent, will walk off a job. We'll walk out of marriage. We'll give it all up because they're mad, incoherent. We'll cut their children off. We'll cut their parents off. Why? Because they're mad, madness, because they're incoherent, because jealousy, what jealousy is, all kind of disorder and evil practice shows up. It doesn't stop. I want you guys to continue to see this. Look what it says. Jealousy also leads to malice. Malice is a fancy way, a one-word way of saying you try to hurt the person that you're jealous of. You go out your way to try to hurt the person that you're jealous of. And listen, this is what jealousy teaches us in the Bible. Jealousy almost always leads to some kind of death. And I know that sounds like a whole lot. But listen to me. What you shared, what you gossiped and said about that person that you was jealous of, do you realize that you're killing their integrity? That you are assassinating their reputation? That you are, the things that you're saying, the way that you try to sabotage a person when you're jealous, the things that you try to do, it's murder, it's malice. The things that we try to do when if you've been treated badly by a person that's jealous, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll go to all lengths to destroy kill your reputation, to kill your integrity, to kill your employment, to take your job, to do whatever. You know, they say this, stuff like knock you off your high horse and all that's jealous. And this is what he does. Look what it says. David was doing his job, workplace violence, as he did each day. But look what he says. But Saul, he had a spear in his hand. And what he tried to do was he suddenly, without even thinking about it, he began to hurl this spear. And the reason why he threw the spear was to kill David. And I want you guys to see this, because when you are a jealous person, you put a spear in your hand. It may be some knowledge that you have about a person in the past, and you begin to throw that spear at people. When you're a jealous person, you're trying to break that person down. When you're a jealous mate, you pick the spear up in your hand and you throw it at this person. And what you are trying to do is you're trying to commit malice against this person. You're trying to stop this person. You're trying to expose this person. This is what you're doing. You are operating in a high form of jealousy. In a place where anger was not checked and resentment was not corrected, and insecurity, you didn't go to God for that insecurity, and madness began to show up, and your breath just gets stankier and stankier and stankier and stankier, and then all of a sudden malice shows up. Hey, but it doesn't stop at malice. He says all kind of evil shows up, and we look a bit further, because what jealousy does, it leads to fear. Look what it says. Saul told you, he was afraid. Why was he afraid? Because I operated in anger and I couldn't get this person, I couldn't take their reputation. I couldn't get this person fired. I operated in resentment, and the people still liked the person, and the people still promoted the person, and the people are still around the person, and the person ain't killed themselves, ain't gave up on themselves. And I operated in insecurity, and I did everything my little insecure heart wanted me to do. And yet and still, this person still got up every morning. This person still continued to move forward. And I started acting as mad as I can act and talking as crazy as I can talk. And I know they heard the things that I said, but yet and still this person ain't said nothing to me, ain't paid me no attention. So then I started to try to do something. And what I realized, that the Lord, Yahweh, is with that person. That Yahweh, that God is covering that person, that no matter what I do, I know I'm jealous. I know I have this resentment. I know I have this anger, this madness. I know I'm going through this thing. I have this insecurity. But all of my insecurity, all of my malice, all of my resentment hasn't resulted in anything. Why? Because God put them there. But it didn't stop there. Let's go a little bit further, because what happens in this story, we see that jealousy eventually leads to envy. I want you guys to see this. Now, I'm going to talk you through it real quick. Basically, what Saul wants to do is he wants to control David. And the way he wants to control David is to make him his son-in-law, because he knows what kind of daughters he got. The daughters come from the same jealous blood that he comes from. He knows that these daughters will control him. And this is what David does. David says to the first girl, I can't marry your first daughter. I'm just a regular old dude. I don't deserve her. David is not operating in jealousy in any way. He's not operating in pride in any way. You killed 10,000 people by yourself. Why wouldn't you deserve? You killed Goliath. You deserve it. David is operating in peace and in humility. And he says, no, I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it. So this is what Saul does. He says, this is what I do. I'll put him over some people who are going to be fighting, and I'll send him out. Put him over some people who are going to be fighting, and I'll send him out to these tough battles, and hopefully the Philistines will kill him. So he goes out to battle time and time again, and guess what? He kills everybody. He always wins. Why? Because Yahweh is with him. Then he gets to this place, he says, listen, my daughter, Micah, she really loves you. She really loves David. I want you to take her as a wife. He talks to the people. He says, encourage David to marry my second daughter. And David actually begins to listen. And then Saul says, check this out. If you can go and kill 100 Philistines, how will I know? Bring me back their foreskins. I'm talking about this is some dirty stuff, guys. He says, this is what I want you to do, David. Shepherd boy. Rooted hair, red hair, little kid. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go out and I want you to kill 100 Philistines. And if you bring me back their foreskins, bag of foreskins, I'm going to give you my daughter. And David says, now I can earn that. That's honorable. I can do that. Now, this David, we love David, right? He's the man after God's heart. But man, he could be a warrior in a minute. He'll flip the switch. You don't want to deal with this David guy. This is what David does. He says, I tell you what, I'm going to bring back 200 foreskins. He goes out into battle. He says, I'm going to give you above and beyond what this is how we ought to always live our life. You know, we wouldn't be jealous if we always lived our life above and beyond. You realize that so much of our jealousy, our insecurity, our resentment, our madness, our malice, so much of what we do, our fear, it comes out of us not trying. I'm sorry, guys. Our best. And a lot of times we look at people who tried their best, who got into a place, that they figured out a way to get to that place. And because we haven't done the 200, we haven't done the 200 instead of the 100, we just do whatever. We do 98, right? We get right to what we're supposed to do and we good, right? But there are some people out there that really put in that extra work. Instead of 100, they go for 200. And we don't like those people, right? They brown jealousy, brown nose. You brown nose. You just trying to get jealousy. You came in early just sort of about jealousy. I'm just trying to get 200 for. I'm just trying to get it done the way I believe God has called me to get it done, which is at an elite level. Don't be jealous of David. David comes back with all these foreskins, 200 of them. He's able to get the wife, and this is what happens. Now he's tried. Saul has tried everything he can to stop David, to kill David, to hurt David, because he's operating in jealousy. And this is what Saul realizes. He says, when Saul realized that Yahweh was with David and how much his own daughter, the one that he literally said, my daughter will be a snare to David. He says the actual daughter that he thought would be a snare to David actually loved him. Saul became, look what he said, even more afraid. And he got to this place where he made David his enemy. That's when this envy, this giant of envy shows up. And listen to me. If we allow anger to go unchecked to the point that it becomes envy, we allow for our families to be destroyed. We allow for our jobs to be destroyed. We allow for, if envy gets inside of this church, we're in trouble, guys. That's where you get the second church, the First Baptist, Second Baptist. That's where you get all the different splits, because jealousy was not rooted out. You know, just me saying something simple like great job to Sister Harris. Great job to Deacon Mobley. Great job to Shane. And then all of a sudden, see some of the people that you don't like at this church, you don't even realize it. It's because pastor calls on them to do stuff. There are some people, you know what I'm talking about. You are at the same place that Saul is. When you just see them, you don't like them. They haven't done anything to you. And the issue is, First Lady, pastor, they're close to that person. That person is always working hard. They're bringing the 200 foreskins instead of the 100. And you don't even realize that jealousy, does this help? The jealousy is setting inside of your heart. And if you don't realize it, it turns to anger. It turns to resentment. It turns to insecurity. It turns to madness. It turns to malice. It turns to fear. It turns to envy. And the peace that used to exist in your marriage, the peace that used to exist at your job, the peace that used to exist at the family reunion, all that's gone now because the DJ booth has been turned over, put up, packed up in the back of the car and going down the street. And this is what, and listen to this. I hear you out there, Sister Callens. And this is what, listen, all this could be avoided. All this could be avoided. Let me show you why. Because when we go back to verse 8, when we go all the way back to verse 8, got to see this, guys. If you can identify jealousy and deal with it immediately, what happened? He heard this story about the women were singing and this party was going on and they were giving credit to David and they were giving credit to Saul, but he was resentful of the credit. And he said he immediately got angry. If you can stop in the moment when that first anger rises up, when you say, I don't know what it is about this person, but I don't like them, that's jealousy. I want you to know that now. I know you've been thinking of something else. I know you highly spiritual people call it intuition and, and discernment and all that. Jealousy. And when that pops up in your spirit and you begin to feel, I'm going to go over here and talk to these people here because y'all not listening to me. When that pops up in your spirit and you begin to say, man, I'm angry about this and it doesn't make sense. I don't even know this person. I don't even have any this person ain't never done anything to me, but I think that they don't like me. This person ain't never done anything to me, but I just don't like them. This person ain't never done anything to me, but pastor keep calling on them. This person ain't never done nothing to me, but now all of a sudden you want to go back to school, and now all of a sudden you want to raise your kids different, and now all of a sudden you think you. And listen, if Saul, when he first felt it, when he said to himself, what's this? Why am I angry? Why don't I like this person? Never done anything to me. Why would I be upset that person got honor? Why would I think that person was trying to do something to me? They don't have a benefit. There's no reason for this person to do this thing. It's madness what you're thinking about. It's insecurity what you're thinking about. It's resentment what you're thinking about. It's anger what you're thinking about. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to gossip and you'll begin to commit the sin of malice by gossiping about this person and sowing seeds about this person. And I like the way the spiritual people gossip. Sometimes you'll just be there and somebody else will say something about this person and you just kind of be like, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to gossip with nobody else. Do you realize that you just gossip? When you didn't come to the defense of that person and say, that person hadn't done anything to you, hadn't done anything to me, we ain't got no business over here talking about him. I don't want you talking about that person in my presence. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a jealous person. You struggling with jealousy? If you don't fix this jealousy, it's going to turn to resentment. If the resentment going to turn to insecurity, and the insecurity going to turn to madness, and the madness going to turn to malice, and the malice going to turn to fear, and the fear is going to turn to envy. And before we know it, the peace at the church going to be gone, the peace at the family going to be gone, the peace at my job going to be gone. So cut that mess out. What is this? What is this? Why are you talking about this person? What is this? Why are you saying these things about this person? What is this? So James, I want you guys to see this. In the same verse, you got to go back and read this. James gives us exactly what we need to do to be able to get rid of jealousy. Now, listen to me. I'm going to go out on the record and say this. You're not going to like it. You're not going to like what James tells you to do to get rid of jealousy. I'm going to say that right now. If you're dealing with jealousy, if you're dealing with a jealous person, if somebody's been tormenting you, been resenting you, been causing you, acting out of their insecurity, mad, handling you like a mad person, I know what it's like. Handling you like a mad person, trying to purposefully do bad things to you, malice, operating in their fear and their envy. If somebody's been doing you like that, you're not going to want to let go of the jealousy and pick up peace. But it is the only way. If somebody is jealous of you, let me go back over here now. Or if you are jealous of somebody, there's only one way that you can fix that thing. Remember what James said? It's unspiritual. He said it's earthly. He said it's demonic. There's only one way that you can get rid of all kind of disorder, all kind of issues, all that anger, all that resentment, all that insecurity, all that madness, malice, fear, envy. There's only one way you can get rid of it. And this is what James said, the brother of Jesus. He says, but the wisdom from above is, first of all, is pure. He says, it is also, look at this, it's peace-loving. What does peace-loving mean? It means that regardless of the situation that you're in, we ought to be trying to get to peace. We ought to be trying to get to this place of peace. He says it's peace-loving. It's gentle. Look what it says. When is it gentle? Even when they talk about you. It's gentle when they say ugly stuff about you. It's gentle when they brag. It's gentle when they do stuff and you know they ain't got no business doing it, but you want to be the police officer and you want to fix their situation and you want the justice and you're tired of everybody, taking their side and all that stuff. Guess what it is? It's gentle even then. It's willing to what? To yield to others. Okay, you know what? You feel that way about me? I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to be peace-loving. I'm going to set down my jealousy and your jealousy, regardless of what you do, regardless of how resentful your Christian self can be. I felt a cussing spirit come through. Regardless of how resentful you can be, I'm going to yield to you. Why? Because the job is more important than me. The family is more important than me. My marriage, more important than me trying to fight anger with anger, Have you tried to fight anger with anger? It's not good for a marriage. You ever tried this with a sibling, try and fight resentment with resentment? You trying to prove that mama did something great for them, and they say mama did everything for you, and you say, no, mama didn't just do that for me. She also did, and then back and forth, and the DJ booth is not completely down. Acting out of insecurity, that's not going to fix it. Acting out of madness, you being mad, I'm being mad, we acting mad, we just going to embarrass Big Mama, right? We just going to embarrass Mama. We're going to embarrass everybody else. Operating out of malice, me trying to hurt you, you trying to hurt me trying to hurt you, you trying to hurt me. We just hurting each other. Fear, I'm trying to make you scared of me, but I'm scared of you, and you trying to make me scared of you, but you scared of me, and we just operating in fear, and we get to this place of envy where, listen, I don't want you around my kids, and I don't want my kids around your kids, and I'm not going to the family reunion, or we gonna all gather. Now, we gonna all gather. I'm trying to make this plain. We gonna all gather. The whole family gonna come together, and we gonna celebrate some big day in the family, and you gonna say, you know what, I ain't going to that. Because she going to be there, because he going to be there, because they going to be there, right? He says, look what he says. It is full of mercy. What does full of mercy mean? It means that if somebody is jealous of you, you continually to forgive them over and over again. Why? Because that's what God has. He's not commanded you to reconcile. He has commanded you to give mercy and to forgive. He says, and the fruit of good deeds, when you're doing this thing in peace, the fruit of good deeds, it shows no favoritism, and it always is what? Sincere. This is peace. This is what God has called us to do. He says, and those who are, what it says, peacemakers, you will plant seeds of peace, and you will reap harvest of righteousness. And this is what he says. No matter how jealous you feel about somebody else, or how jealous or envious somebody has treated you, this is what he says. You have to figure out a way to what? Rejoice in the Lord. When? Always. And I say it again. Always rejoice. You got to get to this place that regardless of what they do, regardless of how you feel about them, I don't care what you feel about them. You need to identify early that is anger, that is resentment, that is coming out of jealousy. You need to, regardless of the situation, he says, you got to be kind to every single person. Why? Because God is near. You got to not worry about anything. You can't allow for your jealousy, for your worry, for your anxiety to come in and cause you to act out of anger and act out of resentment and act out of insecurity and act out of madness and malice and envy and fear. But instead, you turn to God and you pray. And you're thankful for what God has done for you and how God has taken care of you and how God has taken care of the family, how God has taken care of the business. And this is the promise that the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, which surpasses jealous people, which surpasses envious people, which surpasses people who are mad, acting mad, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. We've got to get to this place where we let go of jealousy and we pick up peace. Look what Solomon wrote. I want you guys to see this. He said, a peaceful heart, it leads to a healthy body, but jealousy is like a cancer in the bones. And what he's saying is, get into the place where you first feel the anger for a person that hadn't done anything to you. When you're on Facebook and you see this person prospering, but you feel something. Y'all know what I'm talking about, don't it? You feel something. At church, you feel something. The first thing you need to do is address it. You need to become a peacemaker. You need to figure out ways to go and make peace. You've been commanded that regardless of the jealousy you feel or the way that somebody has treated you jealously, I think that's a word, that you are to be a peacemaker. You are to be a person who always focuses on those things that are noteworthy, that are pure. Remember that from James's writing, that are pure, those things that are lovely. This is the stuff that we have to focus on. Jealousy always makes us focus on the wrong things, the bad things, what that person said, what that person did, not forgive a person, not let go, hold a grudge. That's what jealousy does. But peace requires for us to only focus on that person and the good things that they've done. You still my sister, you still my brother. You were there for me during that time, whenever it was. You still my coworker, you still my boss. You were there for me before all this happened. I have to focus on those things that are good. I have to do the things that the Bible has told me to do. I have to be a person of peace, regardless of what happens. I can't be a person of justice. God's not called us to be the police, the Christian police. God has called us to be people who give mercy, who extend peace. Our God is a God of peace. And what he says is, when we do this, the God of peace will be with us. So I have a question for you. What is God saying to you about the way you handle jealous people first? What is God saying to you about the way you handle jealous feelings? Like when you feel jealous and when you feel anger, when you get to that what is this moment, what is God saying to you about the way that you handle jealousy? And here's, I'm adding a question this week going forward. How could what you learned today have changed some portion of your life to this point? How could it have changed some relationship? How, if you knew today that anger versus anger is never going to lead to anything, resentment versus resentment never going to lead to anything, envy versus envy, fear, none of these things are ever, that the only way that you can offset anger, resentment, insecurity, malice, fear, envy, I know you don't like it, but it's peace. It's being a peacemaker. It's giving peace. It's rejoicing that person, rejoicing the situation. It's being kind in every situation. It's not worrying, not being anxious, not operating out of insecurity, not operating out of fear, but trusting God through everything and praying to God and being thankful and allowing for him to protect your heart and for him to protect your mind. Let me ask you a question. This week, how is your life going to be different if you let go of jealousy, whether it's somebody jealous of you or whether it's you jealous of somebody else? How is your life going to be different if you let go of jealousy and you pick up peace? I want you to imagine for a second. In whatever relationship where the turntable has been turned over, where the music stopped playing and the people have long gone left. What relationship in your life needs for you to show up right now and to let go of all the resentment, all the anger, everything that's happened in the past, and to embrace this person, embrace this situation, pull your family back together, pull your department back together, and allow for the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, to rule? Do you realize that you have the power to call down from heaven? You can call heaven down on earth in your marriage. You have the ability inside your parenting, inside of your relationship. You have the ability to call peace in. You have the ability to live in peace regardless of the jealousy that you're faced with. To God be the glory. Amen.